Welcome back. A ton of armchair quarterbacks this Sunday on what went right and what went wrong in the battleground states like Wisconsin.
So let's bring in our own starters who spent decades inside the campaigns. Republican strategist Bill McCoshen, Democrat Joe Zepecki. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks.
Bill, let's start with you. You were close to Trump world and kind of helped craft on-the-ground efforts here in the state. What was the tipping point to get him over the top?
Effort. I mean, he was here a lot, and he came to every place that Governor Thompson, Governor Walker had recommended that he come to. J.D. Vance was here almost every week during the general election, and he talked about issues that people care about, whether that's the economy. According to Marquette, that was far and away the #1 issue for Wisconsin voters. Immigration was the other thing he talked about a lot, and he connected with people. So I think it was effort and having an agenda that actually resonated with voters.
Joe, you worked on Obama's campaign. What did the Harris team do wrong? What did they not do here in Wisconsin?
Well, I'm going to start with what they did right and well. The day that Joe Biden stepped aside, he was losing to Donald Trump on the economy by 20 points. By election day, Kamala Harris was only at a 4-point deficit on the economy, the #1 issue, compared to Donald Trump. So in 107 days, to do what she did is really remarkable. Were there things that you might do over again? Absolutely. But we know that the global economic headwinds were enormous all around the world. Incumbent political parties, regardless of right or left, have been thrown out on their keister over the last year. That is what, apparently the trend is in the wake of a global pandemic and global inflation. It didn't matter that the U.S. economy is statistically the envy of the world. There was a disconnect between the perceptions of the economy and the macroeconomic statistics. Was there a better way to talk about some of that? Was there a better way to detach herself from an unpopular incumbent? Maybe, but I'm not here to armchair quarterback. We're going to learn and we're going to grow, but we also had a lot of successes on the Democratic side on Tuesday night.
Do Democrats, though, need to armchair quarterback in a sense after this loss?
I don't like that term. Maybe that's the football coach in me.
Right.
Listen, you should always be learning and soul searching and getting better. But to say this is all Kamala Harris's fault or it's all the fault of the mainstream media, that is an oversimplification.
In my opinion, Donald Trump had a mandate. Not only did he win all 7 swing states, but he also won the popular vote. So he carried in 4 new members of the United States Senate. So here's what I would caution Republicans. This wasn't necessarily a red wave, it was a Trump wave. So if you ran this cycle as a Senate candidate and won, or you ran for re-election as a congressional candidate or as a new candidate, in Tony Weed's case, you ran on Donald Trump's agenda. Now it's up to you to deliver on that agenda. If you want this to be a durable majority going forward, you have to deliver the agenda over the next 2 years.
Is this Trump's Republican Party from here on out?
It certainly is for the next 4 years, and J.D. Vance is a big part of it. I wasn't crazy about J.D. Vance when he first picked him. He turned out to be a superstar for Donald Trump.
As the country prepares for a second Trump administration, what do you think the first 100 days of the administration and this new Congress are going to look like?
Listen, they're way far ahead of where most new administrations are. Remember, he's already been president once. They've been working on the transition, Jaron, since they left here in Milwaukee from the RNC back in July. So I expect them to have a full complement of appointments ready to go on day one. And I think he will have a stronger team that understands this is a one-and-done term. And he got elected to produce very specific results. And I think the entire cabinet, the entire administration will be focused on that.
And Congress?
Well, listen, if you're in Congress and you're a Republican and you're going against Trump, it's at your own peril.
What do Democrats need to do?
Well, I think during the transition, we need to confirm as many more judges as we can. Got to fund the government. There are probably some things the Biden administration can do to try to make it a little tougher for a Trump administration to unwind some of the progress we've made. That may well happen, and I think some of it should. The open question is still who is going to control the House of Representatives. It's probably going to be Republicans, but there is a path where it is Democrats. And if that's the case and you have divided government, it's going to be a lot harder for Donald Trump to implement that fast and furious 100-day agenda.
And even if it is Republican, it's going to be a small majority.
It's going to be a small majority, but what Mike Johnson didn't have in the last 2 years, he will have now, which is the backstop of Donald Trump. When Donald Trump has the megaphone, he knows how to use it.
Big picture, when we look at Donald Trump, Tammy Baldwin winning Wisconsin, Joe, how did that happen?
Well, Tammy Baldwin is an incredible United States Senator. She's a first ballot Hall of Famer, put her on the Mount Rushmore of Wisconsin politicians, as far as I'm concerned, because against those economic headwinds, she got over the top. How? Because she's a really good United States Senator.
This is Tammy Baldwin's closest election in her entire career. It's less than a point. The difference in this race really are the third-party candidates. So if there is a separator, it's those third-party candidates. I think Eric Hovde ran a great campaign, and I don't think we've heard the last from him.
Sounds like some Democrats after the 2016 presidential election here. Those third parties. That's democracy.
All right, gentlemen. Democratic strategist Joe Zepecki, Republican Bill McCoshen. Thank you guys, like always.
Thanks for having us.
Next, the exit polls and what we're learning. Journalist Soledad O'Brien, host of Matter of Fact, is with us next.